Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once more, welcome this evening to this show, this program. You have your host here, Brother Thomas, and I'm glad to be with you today after about 2 weeks of absence. It's always good to be back. Tonight, we are going to talk about something very, very exciting, a very, very exciting topic. Actually, it is titled Selfishness. Selfishness. Tonight, we want to talk about selfishness and self-centeredness. We want to know why people are selfish or why people are self-centered. What are the causes of this disease that is plaguing our society today? And I am sure at one point in time you have run on somebody or stumble on people who have demonstrated excessive self-centeredness that you were really wondering what kind of human beings they are. But before we continue this program, I just wish to let you know that this program is not intended or directed towards somebody. This program is for the sole purpose of education. So we are here to educate ourselves and to educate the people around us, because we believe that through education we can overcome some of the diseases that are plaguing our society today. So without further ado, I would like to give you a global definition of what selfishness is all about according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. But I just want you to have an overview of what we are going to be discussing tonight. I said, the main topic is selfishness or self-centeredness, and the overview of our discussion is articulating around three major points. We are going to, first of all, define what selfishness is all about, the causes of selfishness, the effects of selfishness on our relationships. When I talk of our relationships, I am thinking of our marriages, how selfishness can lead to tensions and even frictions and eventually to divorce, and the effects of selfishness on our marriages and also on our family relationship, parents and children relationship, even on our friendship. And finally, we will talk about the effects of selfishness on the global economy, both at national and international level, and we will wrap up with the cure. What is the cure to this disease? So quickly, I want us to talk about the definition. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionaries, selfishness is something which consists of showing concern only for yourself and not for the needs or feelings of other people. Showing concern only for yourself and not for the needs or feelings of other people. And of course, what does that do? What that does is that it makes people to have a complete disregard of other people's need or other people's selfishness. A more detailed definition of selfishness would be the fact that people are very concerned, excessively or exclusively concerned with self, seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, pleasure, or well-being without regard for others. And another definition is arising from concern with one's own welfare or disadvantage in disregard of others. That is what selfishness is all about. Aside from this definition, we can also say there is a good side. Is there a good side? Yes. Is there a good side to selfishness? This is a big question. Is selfishness something utterly negative, or can there be something good out of it? We will know as we progress in this discussion. So I want to talk about the causes of selfishness. What is the first cause of selfishness? what makes people to be selfish. Number one cause is that selfishness is part of our human nature. Selfishness, ladies and gentlemen, is part of our human nature. We are by nature selfish. We are selfish, and the philosopher Thomas Hobbes proved, I don't know whether I would say he proved, but in his famous 1651 work, which is titled The Leviathan, Hobbes argues that people are inherently wicked and selfish, and he puts forth his ideas for the social contract and laws required by a society of evil beings or evil creatures. This viewpoint is very debatable, since human nature supports both pro-social and selfish traits. We have seen selfless people who care for others, who are perfect strangers. We have seen people like the famous Mother Teresa, who devoted all her lifetime serving other people. She was human like you and I, yet she was a selfless being. So with this, we can really argue Thomas Hobbes' point that selfishness is something which is human nature. Maybe we can say that selfishness is part of our human condition, but I don't know if that is part of our human nature. But one thing I know for sure is that the ancient book I call the Bible, says in the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 3, verse 1 to 5, that in the end times there will be perilous times, there will be difficult times, and people will be evil, they will be selfish, they will be lovers of themselves, they will be self-centered, they will be ungrateful, they will be lovers of money rather than lovers of God, they will be lovers of pleasure rather than being the lover of their neighbors. So the apostle who wrote that epistles went on and on, giving a long list of the kinds of sin that will be plaguing the world towards the end time. And we know that, of course, selfishness is one of the big plagues that he has mentioned. So we are living those times, those end times, where people are so self-centered, where people are only concerned with themselves. They have no regard. Whatever they do it in total disregard of other people. What matters to them is their pleasure, it is their well-being, it is their profit, it is their benefit, even if it should be obtained at the detriment of the other party. And this is something which is very dangerous, very bad. Another definition, or let me say another cause of selfishness, I believe, is insecurity. And to me, this is the biggest reason. The biggest reason why people are selfish is because they tend to think they don't have enough. Even if they do, a selfish person, therefore, is also likely to be a stingy person. This insecurity of not having enough motivates a person to hold on to their resources and not share them. And this is what we are seeing today at personal level, at interpersonal level, even at national and international level, because we have that feeling of insecurity, of not having enough. We tend to grab everything. We tend to amass everything because we want to have enough for our future. But even if we grab everything, I don't know if that will be enough, because there is no amount of money that will be enough for human beings. There is no amount of pleasure that will be enough. There is no amount of material things that will be enough. Men are always pursuing new pleasures. They are always pursuing new riches. They are always chasing shadows. And you know, one thing with your shadow is that the more you chase it, the more it runs away from you. But if you turn your back to your shadow will chase you. And that is a mystery. It's a natural mystery and also a spiritual mystery, which should be food for thought for us human beings today. So we should learn to know that we should learn that there is no amount of money, there is no amount of riches, there is no amount of gold that will ever bring satisfaction, because satisfaction does not come from those things. Satisfaction comes from the feeling of knowing that the Almighty is watching over us, that the Almighty cares for us, and that He will supply our need daily. And that is why the Savior in the ancient book was able to say in the book of Mark chapter 8 verse 36, "What shall it profit a man to gain the whole world if he will end up losing his soul?" Because the life of an individual does not consist in the abundance of his household or in the abundance of his riches. The life of men do not consist in the abundance of their riches. So we should be careful not to run after things that will bring no satisfaction. We should be careful not to run after things that will not bring eternal joy to us, because vanity upon vanity, everything is vanity and vexation of the spirit, as the Ecclesiast, the wise man, said in the ancient book. So we are identifying the causes of selfishness. We have listed two causes so far. The first cause, we said, stem from the fact that selfishness might be part of our human condition. And the second reason is that selfishness, which to me is the biggest reason, is a feeling that comes from the feeling that we don't have enough. So because of our insecurity, we want to amass, we want to hoard, we want to gather everything to ourselves because we want to have enough. We want to have that financial security, that material security, or that sentimental security, in order to convince ourselves that we are good for tomorrow or after tomorrow, but one day at a time. Because, as the ancient book says, we cannot boast of tomorrow. We can't boast of tomorrow because nobody is the master of tomorrow. Only the Almighty is the master of tomorrow. There was a story in the ancient book told by the master himself, and that story is about a rich man who had a great harvest. And because he had a great harvest, he stood up and he beat his chest and he said, "Oh, my soul, rejoice, eat and drink, because you have much, you have secured your future." And the man, instead of sharing with his neighbors and friends and families all the produce that accrued from his harvest, what he did is he broke down all his barns and built new barns and amassed all the overflow of the harvest in that year. And that was a typical example of selfishness and a typical example of self-centeredness. And it is unfortunate because what happened the following day was something very fatal and very dramatic. In the midst of his rejoicing, in the midst of his security, his soul was claimed from him. And that very night, the Almighty said, "You are a fool, because you put your trust in yourself and in your riches, your soul shall be required of you." And that night he gave up the ghost, and all the riches and the harvest that he had amassed for himself became public domain. So we should be careful not to be so much concerned with ourselves that we forget to share with our neighbors and other fellow human beings whom God has placed on our way. Who knows why you are here? God might have planted you here because he wants you to be of assistance, or he wants you to be the helper of somebody whom you are ignoring because of your selfishness. So we are talking about selfishness again, and I want to now switch to the third reason. The third reason why people are selfish, I believe, is because of the kind of educations they have received. Some people have been educated to be selfish from a tender age, whereas other people have been educated to be selfless, or at least to be people who share. There was a song that my sons teach me, and that song comes from cartoons. And that song says that we should share because sharing is caring. The first time I listened to that song, I was bemused. I was really bemused. And I said, wow, what a big lesson. Because we only do better together. Nobody can do better alone. If you think that you are doing better alone at the detriment of others, then you need to think well. You need to think twice, because we can only thrive, we can only prosper together. And that is the kind of prosperity that brings everlasting joy. That is the kind of success that brings satisfaction, not a selfish one, not selfish motive, not selfish ambition. You know, there are people who, even when they are working for the group, they have their own personal agenda. I'm not saying it is something which is utterly bad. It's good to be sometimes selfish, because there is also a good side to selfishness. Selfishness protects, because we know that some people, when they know you are selfless, they try to milk out of you all kinds of services, and they leave you dry. And when you can't supply the services anymore, they dump you like an old pair of socks. And you need to be careful with that kind of people. And that is why, even though you might be a selfless person, you still need to set some boundaries. You still need to set some boundaries, because givers need to be careful of takers, because takers have no limit. Those who are always in a receiving position, receivers, they have no boundary, they have no limits. They will keep receiving, they will keep receiving, even if you are completely dry. They will keep being demanding, they will keep asking from you things that are beyond your human capacity. And that is why we should sometimes be selfish in order to protect ourselves, because selfishness offers that protective barrier that we all need at one point in our life. But apart from that, what we are discussing here tonight is that selfishness is something which is very, very bad. It is a vice. It's not a quality. It's not a virtue. It is a vice. And if the ancient book has listed it amongst the diseases that will be plaguing our society in this end time, then we need to take extra precaution when it comes to this feeling. Now, I want to talk about the kind of education that we receive. I mentioned it earlier. That is also one of the reasons. Remember, 3 reasons why people are selfish. 1, selfishness is part of the human condition. Regardless of your nationality, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of your level of education, you are not immune to being selfish, because selfishness is something which is deeply seated in us. It is something which is deeply rooted in our soul, and education does not take it away. I have seen people who are extremely educated, but still they are among the most selfish people in the society. I've seen people who are so much entrenched into religion and still they are selfish. I have seen people who are very, very spiritual, who are very, very religious, and still they are prisoners, they are in the grips of that demon called selfishness. So it doesn't have to do with your level of education. It doesn't have to do with your level of spirituality. It is something which is in all of us, and depending sometimes on the kind of education we have received. How were you educated? How were you trained? Were you educated to be selfish, or were you educated to be selfless? Or at least were you educated to share? How do you see yourself in the society? Are you seeing yourself as somebody that has been posted where you are to be of help or to be of assistance to your fellow human beings? Or are you seeing yourself as somebody who must succeed by all means, even if it is at the detriment of others? Only you can answer this question. Now, my next question is selfishness a social issue? Yes. Selfish motivation occurs in social contexts where behaviors have direct or indirect consequences for others' well-being. It affects our marriages, like I said earlier at the introduction. It affects our family relationship, and it affects our economy. And you might ask me, how does selfishness affect our marriages? What are the consequences of selfishness on our marriages? I can give you a plethora of negative effects that selfishness has on our marriages. You know, watch for the following symptoms, because there are signs that a partner in marriage is selfish. One, you are always on the receiving side. When a partner is always on the receiving side, this is evidence that they are selfish. Two, it is your way or the highway. Three, you are never flexible. You never seek a compromise with your partner. Even when you come at the negotiating table, you already have your own plans. Your personal agenda matters to you than the family agenda. This is a big sign that someone is selfish. Next, when you don't listen to your partner's opinion, what your partner thinks or what they like is of no importance to you. It is what you think that matter. It is your opinion that matters. It is your ways that matters. It is your vision that matters. It is always you. You and you. It is always about you. It is always about you, how you feel. Never about how your partner feels. Never about what he wants to do. It is always you. This is big selfishness. This is complete self-centeredness. And my friend, this is a sin. This is something which will destroy you. Unless you change that attitude, your marriage will be running down the drain, because marriage is a set of compromises. You should learn to compromise. Next, when you don't care about what makes your partner happy, oh my goodness. Many people don't care about what makes their partner happy. Even if the things that make your partners happy do not make sense to you, at least try and make him happy for once. For once, forget about yourself. The world does not revolve around you. The world does not revolve around your desires and your needs. Other people's exist. They exist, and you should acknowledge them instead of ignoring them. Oh my goodness. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. Another sign or another symptoms of selfishness in a marriage is when you act impulsively and manipulatively. Some people can really manipulate their partners in marriage. They act impulsively or they act manipulatively They can cry, they can throw temper tantrums, they can yell, they can pretend that they have been offended when actually they are the offenders. All kinds of manipulation. Number 7, you always want to have the final say. Always want to have the final say, as if it was a competition or as if it was a debate. Your input to the success of the relationship is little or zero. If care is not taken, all these might give rise to to tensions and to frictions, and eventually it can lead to divorce. Selfishness is one of the main causes, if not the leading cause, to divorce in our society today. Selfishness. Selfishness. You fail to put yourself into your partner's shoes. You fail to wear the coat of your partner. You fail to see things from a different perspective. You fail to sit down and to question yourself and to ask yourself honest question. Can I be wrong? Could it be that I am wrong? Could it be that my partner is right? No, you don't even want to give room to these kinds of questioning because you are right all the time. There is no way an individual can be right all the time and everywhere and in every circumstances. Everybody cannot be wrong and you are right at the same time. Everybody cannot be going the wrong way and you are going the right way. At one point, you should learn to sit down and query yourself. You should learn to sit down and question your motives. Now, we have just talked about the consequences, the signs and the symptoms of a selfish partner in marriage. Now, let's talk about how parents act selfishly towards their children. When parents fail to spend time, especially quality time with their kids, they are being selfish. Parents often use toys and television to babysit their children. And why do they do that? Because they want to have enough time, they want to have a leeway to devote themselves into their passion, to devote themselves into what they like, into the things that give them pleasure. And they leave their children into the hands of toys and television. You are a selfish parent. I don't care how many toys you can buy for your kids. I don't care how expensive those toys can be. You are using those toys to babysit your children instead of you spending times with them. This is just selfishness. This is complete self-centeredness. And this is how parents act selfishly towards their children. My kids sang a nursery rhyme that became an eye-opener to me. The lyrics of the song said, "The more we come together, the happier we would be. The more we come together, the more we come together, the happier we would be." That is the way to happiness. The more we come together, not the more we estrange from one another, not the more we separate from one another to devote ourselves to our selfishness. The more we come together, the happier we would be. Let's go back to this old-time nursery song to learn the wisdom that it offers us, because that is the way out. That is the way out. When parents fail to pay attention to the emotional need of their children, they are acting selfishly, because a selfish person does not even have the capacity to notice that the people around them are unhappy, because they are too busy pursuing the things that will bring satisfaction to them. They are too busy pursuing those things instead of devoting their time to their kids. They fail to pay attention to the emotional needs of their children. Sometimes a child might come to you as a parent and he wants to share share something important with you. Maybe he wants to tell you what he did in school, or he wants to share with you the frustration or the joys that he has encountered in school. But because you are too immersed in the things that provide satisfaction to you, you fail to pay attention. You fail to pay attention to that child who is loaded with things that he or she wants to share with you. And the child gets frustrated because the first people who should be his listeners are not. When I say the first people who should be his listener, I am referring to you as a parent or as a guardian or as somebody who has been given authority to watch over them. You don't pay attention to their emotional needs, and you leave them to fend for themselves. This is a big mark of selfishness and self-centeredness. Sometimes we are too busy doing what we do that we fail. We fail to pay attention, just like I said earlier. Now, I want to talk about how selfishness affects our economy, both at national and international level. How does selfishness affect the economy? It's very simple. If employers are fair, if they are selfless, or if they are generous, they will not take advantage of their employees. They won't. They will not hold back their wages, or even try to cut back their money. In a free market, the powerful monopoly may choose to not exploit their workers and consumers, but set fair prices and fair wages. But that is not what we witness in our transactions or in our marketplaces or our business places every day. Instead, what we witness is manipulation. What we witness is exploitation. What we witness is trying to take advantage of others. The producers want to take advantage of the consumers. The buyers want to take advantage of the sellers. And the sellers want to take advantage of the buyers. A society where people are selfish. They only want the benefit for themselves. They only want to pull they only want to pull the strings towards themselves. That is selfishness, and it affects our economy. It affects our economy. If employers could learn to be fair, if they could learn to be just, if they could learn to not hold back the wages of their employees, we would have a better workplace, we will have a better economy, and we will have a better society. In our business transaction, if the suppliers were not trying to take advantage of the consumers, we would have a better economy, we would have a better society. And you see how selfishness affects our economy nationally and internationally and give rise to a world that is full of tensions. Even at the stock exchange market, manipulation taking place. Manipulation taking place at every level of the economy, because there is a group of people who want to gather all the wealth in the world for themselves and leave the rest of the population to starve or to famish. This is something which is completely unfair. And I think that we are getting more and more cruel and barbaric and savage than the middle-aged men. And we call ourselves a modern society. We call ourselves a civilized society where a man is a wolf to another man. A society where it is the law of the stronger ones that gobble the feeble ones. It is time for us to repent from this kind of attitude and this kind of behavior. If you are just connecting to our program today, remember we are talking about selfishness, how selfishness affects our society, how it affects our relationship, it affects our marriages, it affects our friendship, it affects our economy. Now, I want to talk about the cure. There is a cure to any disease, I believe. There is a cure, and I believe there is a cure to selfishness. The cure for this disease is the application of two golden rules expressed in the ancient book. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. If you read the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verse 31, you will hear the Master himself giving this command to his followers and to the rich people who were around him. Love your neighbor as yourself. You should learn to love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you love your neighbor as yourself, you will not envy him. You will not covet what belongs to him. You will not try to steal from him. You will not lie to him. You will not do things that will bring pain and hurt to him. Instead, you will do things that will be fair. Love your neighbor as yourself. And the second golden rule, do not do to others what you will not have them do to you. If you know that when you pinch somebody it hurts, or if you know better that when you are pinched it hurts, then don't pinch another person. It is as simple and as basic as that. As simple and as basic. Don't do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. And in Philippians 2:3, the ancient book tells us that we should do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, we should value others above ourselves. How wonderful that is. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. I wish we all could apply these golden rules and we would have a better society today, because that is what it is all about. We need to have a better society of men and women who could look at themselves and be proud and say, we are civilized human beings. In 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 5, the ancient book says love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. It keeps no record of wrongs. And in Proverbs 11:25, the same ancient book tells us that a generous person will prosper. A selfish one will seldom prosper. But a generous person will prosper. And today we are having some donation here at Radio Bulamasti, and I want to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt thanks to all of you who have donated whatever you had, whom you felt could be of help in this holiday season, in this Christmas time, and which you donated. We really pray that it will go well with you, and we want to thank you. And I want to thank you all in the name of Radio Bulamasti and Shana TV. We need to be generous, because a generous person will prosper, and whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. You know, whatever goes around will always come around. It will always come around. Whatever goes around will always comes around. Life has what we usually call a boomerang effect. When when you throw a ball against a wall, the ball will boomerang and come back to you. It will come back to you. And that is how every generous action is. It will come back to you. And the same applies to any wicked action. Any wickedness will boomerang to you. So, dear friends, we have come to the end of tonight's program. And I want to thank all of you for listening. If you have loved this program, please feel free to drop a comment on our Facebook page and let me know what you have loved in this program and share your views and insight with me. And I will be very, very delighted to read all your comments and, if possible, give you a feedback in our forthcoming program. So for those of you who are just joining us, I just wish to say as a reminder that today we were talking about selfishness, a disease that is terribly plaguing our society today. After defining selfishness, we identified 3 causes of selfishness. The first, which is a very natural cause. Selfishness is part of our human condition. But that doesn't mean that there are people who are not selfless from birth, because children learn to be selfless. I don't know if I should say they learn, but from birth we can see how they share together. The more we come together, the happier we would be. And we have identified also the biggest cause of selfishness, which is the feeling of insecurity. Because we are insecure, we want to amass everything for ourselves, thinking that we will have enough for the future and we will not have to work or over-labor ourselves to have whatever we have. But this is a fallacy, because we are only falling into the trap of disillusionment. This is complete disillusionment. We should learn to share together. We should learn to be selfless. We should learn to devote ourselves to the well-being of other people, because that is the way to happiness and the way to satisfaction. And we identified the 3rd cause of selfishness, which was related to the kind of education we received from childhood. Some people have been educated to be selfish. Others have been educated to be selfless. It all depends not only on the spiritual disposition of our heart and soul, but it also depends on the kind of education that we receive. We went further to talk about the consequences of selfishness on our relationship, marriage relationship, parent-children's relationship, and also the consequences of selfishness on our friendship, the consequences of selfishness on our economy, and we wrapped up with the cure. What can we do? What can be done in order for us to be healed from this feeling of insatiable feelings of always wanting to have more and more? So we have come to the end. Once more, thank you all for listening. If you have loved this program, please feel free to share it with your Facebook contacts, your Facebook family. And let's talk about Shana TV and Radio Bulamasti to others. This is a radio that is very selfless, so strongly devoted to the well-being of our community, and we pray that God will continue to bless Radio Bulamasti and all the staff and all those who are working tirelessly to bring information to us on a daily and regular basis. Stay well and see you next time.